To Math Project Video 2, Creating Explanation Slides. There's two things that I want to accomplish in this video. Number one is how you're going to create functionality in your explanation button so that when you click on it that it actually does something. And secondly, how to create explanation slides that cycle. So when you explain the steps or the key important points in your topic, how are you going to create the slides that cycle through and show a user how to do that? Well, let's start with the first thing, how to create functionality in your explanation button. So I'm going to go ahead to Scratch, and once I log in, again, if I look at my folder, I can see all of my stuff. And from what I remember, this is where I left off. I have right now, when I click on my flag, my sprite that shows up and just introduces people to the tutorial, and I've got two buttons that pop up as well. But at this point, nothing works. And so let's start with that first thing. Let's give this explanation button some functionality so that it actually does something. What I want to do first is I want to go to my explanation button. So I'll click on my explanation button in my sprites. And right now the only code is when the flag is clicked, go to this spot and stay right there and show up. Okay. The first thing that I want to do is I want to create the functionality through what's called an event. An event will trigger functionality, and the specific event that we want to call over is when this sprite is clicked. So when this button is clicked, I want a series of actions to happen. I want all of these guys to disappear. I want the title to disappear. I want a new background to show up, and I want the slides to start. So the way that that series of events is going to occur is not just when this sprite is clicked, but when I use something called a broadcast. And a broadcast is basically a signal to everything, a signal that is received by every sprite and every background, which will then tell the sprite or background to do something. And so I'm going to say when this explanation button is clicked, broadcast a new message. And let's call this message explanation. Okay, so this signal called explanation is going to be sent out to everyone on the screen. Well, the first person that I want to receive that signal called explanation is the button itself. So I'm going to drag over this code from the same events palette. When I receive explanation, what I want to do is hide myself as a button. So when I receive this signal called explanation, hide. That's the first thing that needs to happen. The second thing that needs to happen is that this guy needs to go away. So let me go ahead and click on that elephant sprite, and I'm going to say the same thing. Go to the events palette and say, when I receive this signal called explanation, I also should hide. Great. So that's taken care of. Now what I want to do is I want to go to my backgrounds and start working with my backgrounds. So I'll go ahead and click on stage. And right now, when I click on stage, I can see that I can add code for my stage. I can add more backgrounds for my stage. I can add sounds for my stage. Right now, let's work with the code for stage. So when the flag is clicked, the first thing that I want to do is I want to show a particular background. So let's make sure that the background is switched to stage 1. Is that what this is called? Yes, this initial title screen is called stage 1. So whatever you called it, if you didn't call it stage 1, make sure that that's what it's called right here. So when the flag is clicked, let's make sure that the background is on stage 1. Okay. Oh, I forgot to do one other thing. I forgot to go to this quiz button and say when I receive explanation, I need to hide. Sorry about that. That's the thing that I needed to go add in there as well. Okay, so going back to the stage, I've got when flag clicked, switch the background to stage 1. Now, this is the part that's going to take the longest for you, is that you're going to start having to make your backgrounds for your explanation. So if I click on a new background, I can either select it, like if I want something to be my background, or if I want to paint it, right, I can paint a new background and it already paints for me. But in this case, what I want to do is create a background from an existing background. So all of my sprites stay here. Don't worry about that. Let's just start providing my explanation. So I'll go to backgrounds and I'll go ahead and start adding things in. So I'll add my text. So the explanation to add and subtract fractions. Okay, remember, once you click out of it, you can't make any edits going back into it. So let's make sure that this is the size that I want it to be. And right now, that's fine. What it looks like at this point looks fine. So this one's called Blue Sky. And let me go ahead and add another background. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on stamp and I'm going to duplicate this blue sky. And you'll notice that it's not just blue sky, but it's blue sky too. Here is where I make my explanation. So first, blah, 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 blah. Okay. And I'll put my explanation there. And then I'll just keep adding to this. So I'll keep duplicating this. And I'll just keep adding to this. And this is what the user will cycle through. Now, obviously, this is not your real explanation, but here's my steps right here. And I'll just keep adding to this. And perhaps at a certain point, I get to a point where I want to show an example. And, well, let's just put third. Okay, and maybe at this point I want to show an example of what that will look like. Well, maybe I'll copy the one that's blank, and then I'll put my example in. So like 1/2. You can notice that making fractions in or 1/4, making fractions in Scratch can be a little bit tedious. Times, hopefully you get the point, right? Here's where you're going to make your explanation. And perhaps by the end, my explanation is all done. Now I've got blue sky 2, 3, 4, 5, all of my explanations are there. Now what I want to do is add the code so that it actually cycles through this. Well, let's go ahead and say, when I receive explanation, I want to switch the backdrop to which one? Blue sky, right? So I want to switch it to blue sky. And now I want it to keep repeating something until a certain point. So I'm going to go to Control, and I'm going to repeat something, okay? I'm going to repeat a switch until it gets to my last backdrop. So let me see what my backdrops go up to. So blue sky 5. So I want it to start at blue sky, and I want it to just keep cycling through until blue sky 5. So I'm going to go ahead and say, keep going until, and I'll go to operators, and I'll drag this one over, this equal sign over. Okay, and I'm going to go to my looks, and I'm going to go ahead and drag over backdrop name equals, what is it called? Blue sky 5. So I'll copy that and I'll paste it in. So keep doing this until the backdrop name equals blue sky 5. Well, what I want to do is go to Control. I want to wait a couple seconds, maybe like 3 seconds. And then what I want to do is switch to the next backdrop. Okay, it's going to keep switching until the next backdrop, all the way until it gets to Blue Sky 5. And that at a certain point, after it's all done, just wait another 3 seconds. And then I'm going to broadcast another message. And that message is going to be called beginning. So let me broadcast something, a new message called beginning, so that this takes me back to the beginning of my slides. Let's make sure everything's working at this point. Okay, right now I've got my sprite showing up. I'll go ahead and click on explanation. Great, my first slide shows up. And notice now it's starting to cycle through. It's giving a little bit of a wait, and then it's switching to the next backdrop. And then this is my last slide. At this point, it should go back to the beginning, but nothing's changing yet. Okay, so right now it's stuck on my explanation. Here's the last part that I need to do. I need to make sure that my other sprites are receiving a signal called beginning. So when I receive beginning, notice I'm still on the stage. When I receive beginning, go back to stage 1. And let's go to the other folks that need to show up. Let's go to this person that needs to show up. And when I receive beginning, I need all of this to happen, right? So watch what I can do right here. I just connect those, duplicate that, and now copy it and paste it over. So now when the flag is clicked and when I receive beginning, that guy is taken care of. Let's go over to quiz, and let's make sure that when I receive beginning, that this code happens again. So I'll disconnect it, I'll copy it, and I'll put it back over. And lastly, when I go to this guy right here, when I receive beginning, I want to make sure that this code copies over as well. So I'll grab the stamp, copy it, and now let's see how this works. Sprite shows up, click on explanation. The explanation begins. This should be my last slide. And now it goes back to the beginning. Perfect. That's all I wanted to show you in this video.